The carpals, or wrist bones, have driven AMP1 students crazy for many years, and you will be um, just the same, driven crazy by the carpals. There's a few things to remember about carpals that are most important. Most important thing is to remember that there's 8 of them in each wrist, so there's 16 total in the human body. They're all short bones. They're very small. They articulate with one another, the radius, and also metacarpals. And they're each named based on their shape. And the names of these carpals is typically what is troubling because they're kind of weird names that you've never heard of. But if you know what the word means, it might help. To learn your 8 carpals, you really need to have them in front of you. So I highly recommend when you get into the lab to work on the carpals that way. Pictures really do not do a very good job. So I would definitely be able to recognize the names of these 8 as being carpals. Whether you get to the point where you know all 8 perfectly, that's kind of a secondary thing. Most importantly is to be able to recognize the name and know that those are carpal bones. So what are the names? If you look down below here, there's what we call a mnemonic. A mnemonic helps you memorize an order, in essence. The mnemonic I actually happen to like because it at least has something to do with a hand, which this is what we're studying. But you'll notice that each of the words, stop letting those people touch the cadaver's hand, represents one of the 8 carpals. So let's go over the names of the carpals and what those names mean. Scaphoid means boat-like. So the scaphoid bone has somewhat of a shape of a little boat. Lunate means moon-shaped. Triquitrum means 3-cornered. It has 3 corners to it. Pisiform means pea-shaped, like a garden pea, because it is a very small, round bone. Trapezium means a 4-sided figure with no 2 sides being parallel. So it is a geometric shape. Trapezoid is also a 4-sided figure with 2 sides parallel. Capitate means head-shaped, like if you decapitate something, you remove a head. So capitate means having a head. And then finally, hamate means hooked. It has a structure on it that's kind of shaped like a hook. Okay, so those are the 8 names. The mnemonic allows you to memorize their order and their location, but you have to be able to use the mnemonic. Basically, we divide the carpals into 2 rows of 4. A proximal row and a distal row. Then you move lateral to medial. So you always have to start on the thumb side and move across medially. So the first carpal would be this guy right here. This guy right here is the scaphoid. Then we go lunate. Those are the 2 that articulate with the radius. The next one is hidden. It's known as the triquitrum, but you just see a little bit of it behind or underneath the pisiform. So that's the first 4 carpals. Scaphoid, lunate, triquitrum is under here, and then pisiform. There's that nice round pea-shaped carpal. That's the proximal row. Distal row, you go back over lateral side. Trapezium, trapezoid, capitate, and then hamate. And the hamate has what's known as the hamulus, which is this little hook shape structure on it. Much easier to get a wrist in front of you from the lab and work on these carpals. Metacarpals are easy though. Metacarpals are the bones in your hand, And you have 5 of those. Metacarpal 1 is the thumb side. So remember, these are not in your fingers. These are in your palm of your hand. Metacarpal 1, metacarpal 2, metacarpal 3, 4, and 5. Then we move distal and we are in the fingers. And the fingers have phalanges. And the phalanges we give designations based on their position. We have proximal phalanges, which would be articulating with the metacarpals. We have middle phalanges in 4 of the 5 fingers. And then we have distal phalanges in all 5. So the thumb does not have 3 phalanges. It has 2. So we use a proximal and distal. Keep in mind, do not call this bone here the proximal phalanx because it is not a phalange. It is metacarpal 1. Students make that mistake all the time. So we need to work on these in the lab. Again, looking at a picture typically isn't the best way to learn your carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges. The next video, we will be moving into the pelvic girdle or hips and then into the lower limbs.